Okay, well, I assume most of you know who this lovely gentleman is, but this is Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series. So, Doug, well, let's get started with asking you how you got into voice acting to begin with.
I actually fell into it. I had never thought about it. I mean, I'd done a little bit of it in the States before I came over to the UK, but not for games, just, for radio and things like that. Yeah, what happened was I was living up in New York, and I'd only just arrived, really, and I had met this agent who became my agent for 17 years. But at that time, we had just met, and she didn't quite know what to do with me as an actor, an American actor in the UK. But she called me one day, and she said, "I've got this audition over in Harrogate with a company called Outsource Media, and they're doing a video game, and they're casting for the main character, and go to the audition." So I went, and Mark Esdale, the guy who started the company, and still is one of the main people who runs it. He had this studio built on the back of his house out in the countryside with sheep around and stuff like that. It was fantastic. Really great place to go and record. I went in, and they put me on mic. I'd never been in a live booth before. And I auditioned, and I got the lead role. So that was a game called Independence War II, Edge of Chaos. And from there, Mark kept inviting me back. I did more games. Gradually, things happened, and eventually I auditioned for this unknown game called The Witcher. And the rest is history, as they say.
And has anybody told you how soft-spoken you are compared to your character?
Oh, yeah. My American accent has been softened by 17 years in the UK, a little bit. But when I need to put it on, I can actually put it on, and there's my American accent.
So what brought you to the UK in the first place?
Well, I was finishing up graduate school. I did a Master of Fine Arts degree in acting at Pennsylvania State University. And my wife is a dual citizen, and I'd never lived abroad. And looking back now, it was a really stupid thing to do. It's really stupid. You finish your MFA in acting, what you then do is go to New York or LA or Chicago if you want something a little bit different. I decided to come over here, where I knew no one, and no one knew anything about me. So it was a really stupid thing, but actually, in some ways, it was the best thing I could have done, because I just started knocking on doors, and because I was a little bit pushy and good at what I did as well, doors quickly started to open for me. So the
just
game
kind of fell into place.
Fell into place, yeah.
And going back to games, had you been much of a gamer before you started voice acting for them?
Not so much video games. I mean, I had the old Atari system, with the game Tanks and Pong
the game
and,
tapes.
Yes, yes, exactly, all that kind of stuff. Pitfall. You remember Pitfall? Yeah. That was a great game. I played that for hours. So yeah, I had things like that, but I kind of fell out of the gaming. But I always liked board games and role-playing games.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up on Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
And then a little bit later, as an adult, Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Vampire the Masquerade.
But I never played Vampire, but yeah, I was right there with you. All my friends were into it. So I always loved games. But video games, I didn't really get into again until I started acting in them. And that just piqued my interest again. And then I finally got a computer that would actually play some of the games. Because that's always a barrier to playing things,
That's what we all struggle with.
Yeah. And I got in this game called Asheron's Call. Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those massive online role-playing games. Yeah. Fantastic. I can't tell you the number of hours I wasted on that.
But I take it now that you've been Geralt, you've spent quite a bit of time playing the games. Have you played them, or is it weird to play a game where you play as yourself?
It was a little weird playing Witcher 3. I have to confess, I've still not played Witcher 1 or 2.
Wow.
I did try to play Witcher 1, but my computer literally blew up. And Witcher 2, I didn't have a console, so I couldn't play it. But when Witcher 3 was coming out, I made a definite effort, and I went in and got a PlayStation 4. and played through. I haven't played through the 2 expansions yet. That's on my list of things to do. But yeah, it is weird. The first kind of half an hour I was playing Witcher 3, it was like I was, talking to myself.
Yeah. And what kind of Geralt do you play? Do you play an evil Geralt or like...
Oh, no.
No. Nice Geralt. Noble Geralt.
Noble Geralt. I tried. The thing is, there were so many choices to make. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. There's so many choices to make. I couldn't remember where all the choices led. So I knew what I wanted to end up with. I knew I wanted to end up with Ciri as a Witcher, me alive, and with Triss.
With Triss.
Yeah, that's the ending I wanted. But I wasn't sure I would get it. So.
Yeah, it was about how to get to that ending, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so out of all, this sounds like a very fangirl kind of question, but like out of all the actors you got to work with for The Witcher, which one did you have the most fun with? Which of the characters? Actually?
Which of the characters? Yeah. Do you know, I only met one of the other actors on
really?
Witcher 3. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't get to work with them kind of one-on-one in the studio?
No, I always recorded alone, and everybody else did as well.
Is that awkward?
No, because it's normal. It's just,
it's
normal. I think it's rare that you, Rolf was saying he had someone in for him just so he could have that, interaction with another person. But that's really, really rare in voice acting for games, in any voice acting really, unless you do like radio plays, for BBC 4 or something like Radio 4. Yeah, who did I meet? It was the girl, the woman who plays, not Triss, Ciri. I can never remember her name. I know.
It happens to.
But I met her like really briefly. I was coming out of a session and she was sat there, and I knew that the person who played Ciri was coming in after me. So I just introduced myself, and literally it was, "Hi, I play Geralt. Oh, hi, I play Ciri. All right, you got to go in. Okay, bye."
So aside from The Witcher, though, what other kind of stuff have you done then, kind of more recently?
More recently? Well, the most recent one that I can actually mention is a game called Spellforce 3. And I play one of the main characters in that, and I recorded that back in July. It's coming out soon. The trailer's out, so I can actually say something about it. So you can look out for me in that. I play a character named Sentenza Noria, I think it is.
Don't even know your own name.
I know. It's terrible. I wake up and I have to look at my business card to figure out who I am.
And is there like a specific type of character that you find yourself kind of, I don't know if you get typecast with voice acting, do you?
Well, yeah, a lot of people do, but I mean, there's some actors. Jay, are you in here? No? Okay. Jay Britton and Amelia Tyler are out there somewhere. I ran into them, and they're both prolific game voiceover actors, and they're often the kind who come in and just do loads and loads of different voices. And then there's people like me who get brought in for specific kinds of voices. I tend to get cast as the reluctant hero.
Reluctant, husky kind of loner.
Yeah, exactly. If you go back into my back catalog, you'll see the same kind of characters over and over again. So yeah.
The lone wolf, yeah.
Yeah, the lone wolf. Yeah, the guy who doesn't want to be a hero but has to be.
And out of curiosity, did you or have you read any of the books?
I've read all of them, except the last one that just came out. I don't know, 6 months ago.
Did you read them before you started?
They weren't out. No,
they weren't out.
Witcher 1. There were no English versions of Sapkowski's books.
So, what kind of did you have to do? Like any kind of research or sort of to get into the role? Any of that kind of Stanislavski method, sort of method acting? No, just wing it. Just make it up as you go along.
No, it's one of those things you internalize. You study it in school, and then you just it's something you do in the background. But there was no research to be done on Witcher 1. So what I had was the developers. I think there were 4 of them, possibly 5. 2 of the writers and several of the developers, and they were all in the recording studio, and they were all giving me different advice. They couldn't agree on all sorts of things because it was all new to them. They knew what Geralt looked like. They showed me a picture. They were trying to describe him to me. My research was talking with the developers about the world of Sapkowski and who Geralt is and what he does and all of those kinds of things. But by the time Witcher 2 came out, there were some books coming out in English, so I was able to actually, go back and read the books and find out more direct from the source.
And did you find that that changed your perception of the character at all, or did it actually kind of cement it more?
I'd say cemented,
Yeah.
because by the time I was into Witcher 2, I had all of my experience with Witcher 1 behind me. I had played a little bit of the game before my computer blew up. And again, coming back to the character, if you were here for the voice panel earlier, I said it's really helpful when you get called back to play the same character repeatedly because you bring all of your history with it. It certainly helped me understand better where the character came from. And there was still it was only the first one, not Blood and Wine. Anybody remember? Hearts of Stone? No, that's not the first book, is it? Is it?
Oh, no, I thought you meant the expansion.
Oh, no. Sorry? The Last Wish. Thank you. You got it. Yes.
I still need
Jennifer
to
got it. She knows. So I think that's the only one that was out at the time, so I read that. But, it's just good to get more into the world.
And did you have any idea that it was going to be like the massive success?
I did, yes.
You did? You. Mr. Modesty over here.
Well, no, not because of me or anything like that, but I knew what CD Projekt was doing. I was in on their marketing and promotional kind of things, at least a little bit. So I knew that there was going to be a big response to Witcher 3.
But Witcher 3, but did you know when it was the very first game?
Witcher 1 got very little attention. Witcher 2 actually got very little attention compared to Witcher 3. Yeah, it did. Witcher 1 developed a cult audience, a cult following, and it was a strong cult following. But it wasn't until Witcher 2 that I think the world of The Witcher and Geralt of Rivia and all of that really came to a more popular kind of...
More kind of broader base, rather than the sort of niche.
Yeah, so the people who played Witcher 2 and liked it...
Yeah,
exactly. So the people who played Witcher 2, whether they came from Witcher 1 or came to it for the first time, they were waiting for Witcher 3.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember the promotional stuff for Witcher 3, it was good. Some of those cutscenes that came out and trailers and stuff, they were good. So,
and some live action sort of stuff, wasn't there? I remember seeing some weird live action videos.
There's a television series from the 80s or 90s that was made in Poland. It's horrible, but it's out there. Go look it up. It's on YouTube. It's dreadful. I don't know how they got away with it, but they did.
Bastardizing your character.
Yeah. Well, it was long ago. Live action. There's a guy. His real name's Ben, but he goes by Mall Cosplay. Some of you know him. If you don't know him and you like The Witcher, go check him out. He is fantastic. He's got all these videos out there, and CD Projekt hires him to go be Geralt at conventions and various things, but he goes all over the world. They fly him all over the world to do these fun little videos. There's even one with me in it where you have to go watch it.
That might have been what I saw, something like that. So are people surprised when they find out that you're Geralt? Ever?
Yeah, they are, because...
Because you don't look like I expected.
No.
No offense.
No, none taken. It's perfectly
I was just
understandable.
expecting long white hair.
And scars down the face.
Yeah.
And,
Magic.
the muscles I've got.
Yeah, you have that.
No, it's a funny thing because some of the comments on that video actually that I just mentioned with Mall Cosplay were actually, I was a little bit offended by them because they're going, it doesn't look like Geralt. And I'm going, of course I don't look like Geralt, I'm an actor.
A voice actor.
But their comments were a little bit more offensive than that in some ways.
Yeah,
because
it's the internet.
they're basically saying, he's not Geralt. He's not. When you play a game, the image of the character and the voice of the character are tied together. Mm-hmm. You all experience this, for Geralt of Rivia. When you hear that voice, that's the face that you imagine.
Especially with the lip syncing, which is just so excellently done. The facial expressions, he becomes kind of a real character.
Yeah.
Like it feels like he's living and breathing.
Yeah, so often, people have no idea that I'm Geralt of Rivia, and if they're fans of the game, then if it does come up, I don't tend to bring it up unless it actually fits into the conversation that we're having. But if I do bring it up, or if someone else brings it up, if I'm with somebody who knows that somebody else is a fan, and and they introduce me and stuff, then, do you know who he is? Do you know who he is? And then they go, oh! Yeah. So it's kind of fun, but it's also sometimes a little bit disconcerting, especially if you're having one of those days where you feel like shit on a stick, and you don't really want to be talking to other people, and somehow you go, oh, here we go.
And do they tell you to do your Geralt voice?
Yeah, that's one of the questions that often comes up. Yeah, which I don't mind doing. It's very easy for me to do.
Oh, there you go. Sounds kind of like a Batman voice.
It is. Do you know on IMDb, somebody did like a top 20 voices for Batman, and I'm in there somewhere.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe we should open this up to audience questions. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Dave Gilbert?
I spoke to you before, but
Yes.
This is a question specifically for you, so I didn't ask it before. The voice is a very, rough, gravelly kind of voice, and I know in my experience with working with voice actors, it's very hard for them to maintain that for a long period of time unless they do very specific things.
I asked them the same thing earlier.
Oh, you did? Okay, well.
But yeah.
No,
So what is it that you specifically do to maintain that for, I imagine, like 2, 3, 4 hour sessions?
Well, now it just is. It's part of my voice. Geralt has become part of me.
He has internalized Geralt.
I've internalized Geralt. No, in very real terms, Witcher 1, it was grueling. It was absolutely grueling. It was enjoyable. I had fun, and I knew I was part of something that could become something really interesting and bigger. But we were doing 10, 12-hour days, and I was really being pushed down there in terms of my voice. We'd take lots of breaks.
How do you do when you're not proud?
Yeah, it hurt. It hurt. It was a week of recording, and at the end of it,
you can hear it. I think you can hear the progression too.
Yeah.
Like in the first game, it does sound more forced, and it does really sound a lot more natural by the third game.
Yeah, by Witcher 2, when I went back to Witcher 2, the first couple weeks, they went back to it. By Witcher 2, the whole industry had gone, we can't push voice actors quite this hard anymore. So everybody was, shortening the session length times. So we were doing sometimes 6 hours, but more often 4 hours. The first couple of weeks it was a little bit hard, but gradually my voice kind of bedded in, and I'd walk out of the sessions feeling a little bit, raw. But by Witcher 3, I was just in there 4 hours, banging it out, and no problems at all. So in very real terms, what I'm actually describing is a process of damaging my voice.
It deteriorated to the point where it's natural now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, people want you to play Batman, so it can't be that
Yeah,
bad.
exactly.
All right, anyone else? Yeah.
What's your favourite Witcher quest, and can you please do some more Geralt voices?
Favorite Witcher quest? Do you know, I liked the Godling Johnny quest. I really enjoyed that. I liked him. I thought he was kind of cool. But there were a lot of good ones. I loved going to Skellige and all the stuff that happened on Skellige. I got really stuck though. I got really stuck on Skellige. I think I didn't finish something.
It's tough. Yeah, there's a lot of quests.
There's a lot of stuff over there. Yeah, I didn't finish something, and then that meant that I couldn't finish something else, and I got really stuck for a long time. And then I think I did something that just negated everything I'd done. So I managed to get through it, but
Yeah, I think we can all sympathize with that. Anyone else? Yeah.
If you could have the voice of any other character or voice actor, who would you have and why?
I wouldn't want anybody else except me. But the reason I say that is because in some ways there's no point in speculating about, if I were. I'm not. I am me, so...
But that's a good question, though. What about a character you could play? Like
character, yeah. Character, well, I could play all kinds of things. I mean, Snake, Solid Snake.
Oh,
But I don't want to do that, because Kiefer Sutherland's already done it, hasn't he? You know what I'm talking about, yeah? Okay, good. I wasn't sure if that was like, yeah, what are you talking about? Or, yeah, we're all pissed about that. Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of character that I tend to get brought into play. So, and I do enjoy playing those characters. But it's really nice when I get asked to do something different. I did a game called Augmented Empire recently, and I got to play this character who, once I saw the picture, I absolutely knew that his voice had to be kind of like a Chicago mobster. It just had to be that. So I got to do that. And it was good fun. And you can hear a little bit of the Geralt voice still in there. But it's got, it's a little bit whispery, and it's got that kind of, I don't know, it's New York or Chicago or something like that.
some kind of middle mobster.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier the game that must not be named. That's Vicky. Put me right. But on that, I got to do something that was much closer to my own natural speaking voice, which is fun as well. So it's nice, when I don't get asked to do the Geralt kind of voice for games.
Surly kind of anti-hero.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
Maybe just two more.
Okay. I don't think we have any more. So. Nope. There we go.
I'll ask one. Yeah. So in addition to the voice performance in The Witcher 3, one of the things that really sells the storytelling there is the cinematic, the animations, the reactions of the characters that are more nonverbal. Did you have any opportunity to give input into that aspect of the performance?
No, not really. That's all the developers. I did get to see some of the early. What do you call them when they're definitely not finished? You can see the blocks. Blockouts, animatics, yeah, those kinds of things. So I got the chance to see some of those in their early stages when we were recording the lines for those scenes, and that's often really, really fun. But in terms of the actual, this room I think has mostly developers in it. Am I right about that? Or people involved in the industry?
Half and half.
Yeah, half and half.
Half, yeah.
Well,
half.
I think one of the things that's kind of funny about being a voice actor in games is you're one of the last things that is thought about, because so much work goes into the games before a voice actor even gets near a project. In answer to your question, I think it's very rare, if it happens at all, that a voice actor has any input into the look of a cinematic or the structure of the storyline or anything like that. I think it would be great to be part of it.
I know that Quantic Dream did it for Heavy Rain. I think the voice actors also did some of the mocap work, the motion capture work, and the facial expressions.
But that's a different thing. That's actors doing what actors do.
That's true.
They're not. But see, what the developers will have done is they'll have created a what do you call it in a movie when the picture story.
Storyboard.
Thank you. Storyboard. Picture story. This is the technical term.
Yes. We've got a real professional here.
The storyboard. The storyboard exists before the actors are on board. So, no, not really. And even the mocap is storyboarded. So, there's a lot of planning, a lot of stuff that goes into it, and the actors come in very, very late in the process usually. And the developers often don't get enough praise for the work that goes in before
that's true.
the work comes out. I think it's people who know. People who don't realize just how much work goes into creating these games. They have no concept of the hours and hours and hours that the artists and the environmental artists and the animators and all these people put into creating these games that we play. It's astonishing.
Yeah, we're pretty great.
Have you seen her game outside?
Yeah, well, he was out there. It came out just last month. Yeah. Okay, well, oh, there's one more. Okay, think last one. Okay. Yeah.
So with like you talk about mocap acting and stuff, like with mocap acting, certainly in the early days there was kind of running joke that in like GTA games when they first had mocap acting, they'd be like, I'm mocap acting in a GTA game, I'm gonna act like this.
Yeah.
And I imagine even now that it's more sophisticated, there might be different ways in which actors act slightly differently when they're mocap acting, and maybe when the face isn't mocap in the same way, how they emphasize or accentuate certain things. I was wondering with voice acting, do you find that because it's voice acting for a video game, and maybe there are requirements from for clarity reasons, are there ways that you act differently because you're only voice acting and not physically acting?
Yeah, I said it in the earlier voice panel, which some of you may not have been at, that for me, the difference between doing other kinds of acting and doing voice acting is I feel that I have to engage my imagination in a way that is different. It's more in depth, it's more engaged. When you have other actors to respond to, then you work off the other actors. And your imagination is still engaged, you still have to place yourself in that imaginary environment. But when you have nothing around you to help you create that environment, you really have to get that imagination going. And I said before as well, not everybody can do that. It's something that I think, and I don't think you can learn it. I think it's one of those things that you either can do it or you can't. You can learn how to work on a microphone. You can learn how to, not hit the plosive sounds or lessen them. You can learn how to sight read better. You can learn how to do different voices and accents. And all those things you can learn. But some things you just can't. And I think that's one of those things you can't. It's just like some people look fantastic on camera and some people don't. Sometimes it has nothing to do with whether the person's a beautiful person. It's just some people look really, really good. You put a camera on them and they just jump out of the screen at you, and some people don't. So.
Do you think maybe it has something to do with that kind of Dungeons and Dragons sort of experience where you are able to get into that sort of imagined setting? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, tapping into the imagination where you have to create this sort of fantasy world you can live in your own head. I don't know.
That could be part of it. Growing up playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and I was often the DM, and I ignored all the rules, and I created horrible scenarios for my players, and I always got them stuck because it was fun to watch them try to work out puzzles that I had no solution to.
You should be a game designer.
But I think people who grow up engaging their imaginations are more likely as adults to be able to tap into that.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah.
There you go. All right, so that's done, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.